when you're talking about Michael Brown and seeing the reports and like objectively looking at both sides, what made you not just have that reaction of this report just is racist? This report's off. Since you were so passionate about BLM, what made you just say, actually, there might be some validity here, instead of saying like, no, this isn't right. This is doctrine.
That's a good question. I think by default, I tend to have more trust in institutions and society than some people do, which is to say, I find a lot of people have a little bit of a conspiratorial bent, which is to say they're very quick to believe that something was doctored, that the world is basically full of good guys and bad guys, and that the bad guys are constantly gathering in back rooms, clinking cocktails together, twirling their mustaches, and coming up with extremely devious ways to deceive all of society. And they're extremely powerful. And for some reason, there are almost never whistleblowers, except for, the occasional Snowden or Assange. I think that picture of the world is pretty untrue. I tend to think what's more true is that everybody is human, which means that often everyone has an incentive to lie or exaggerate for their own benefit. The police lie and exaggerate all the time. I know that to be true. But I also know that the best friends of people who died lie and exaggerate all the time to protect their dead friend's reputation. So I couldn't give one side any sort of credit that I couldn't also give the other, or any sort of skepticism that I couldn't get the other, absent further evidence that would confirm one side or the other from a neutral third-party perspective.
Well, I would say years ago, I definitely believed in the mustache man in that because my story is completely opposite. Though I knew deep down what I saw was 100% true, but I refused to believe it. So I'm going to go back to what I was talking about when my mother was the only person I told this to. I think I was at grad school writing a paper and I told her this story. I remember I was invited to do a speech for March for Our Lives and like show up for the Black Lives Matter narrative, like the organization. And, I was going to talk about all of the Black people that died in 2017 and I believe 2016 were the years. And I went to look at the FBI reports and like this stats and the data and everything. And I was prepared to see a huge number. I was thinking I was going to see 2,000 Black unarmed people died or 3,000. But when I saw 2-digit numbers, I was like, wait. And I was like, this is off. So it took me an hour to realize that the number I thought just didn't exist, and that, I think 2017, it said 20 or something. I don't know the numbers, but those 2 digits. And I remember just taking that complete paragraph that I was about to say in this speech totally out of it, because that doesn't fit that narrative. If I say we're constantly dying, but then there's only 20 of us dying a year, I was like, am I off or is this racist? And then I went with the latter. I was like, okay, these reports are racist, they're off. But I started to really, really think about that. And I was like, why is it that Black people's death when we die by police, why is it so easily accessible on social media and news? Why is it we are pretty much the only race that it's pushed in people's faces? And then I started looking back in history with American slavery. And I remember this one document, I forgot what it was called, but they talked about how slave owners would have these methods of dependence for the slaves, and that when they would punish a slave, they never did it in isolation. They would always gather all the slaves around to watch the slave get beat so that they would be like infected with this insidious trauma of fear, and then like fear by proxy by seeing the slave being beat. And not to say that is the same thing with the fear I was feeling, but with these videos so accessible everywhere, constantly, CNN on a loop, like I couldn't even get away. Even if I didn't want to watch the video, I found myself seeing it. And I started to think like, it's almost as if the 40 million of us that are in this nation, the Black community, it's almost like we're being gathered around to watch these videos, to like be induced with more fear of the cops, to be infected, to have this fear that to always fear for our lives every day. And that's just something I was internally dealing with, never said out loud and never thought to say out loud, because if I did, I felt like I would completely invalidate Black Lives Matter and everyone that was involved. So
it occurs to me, I was having a conversation with someone a few months ago, and they made a very good point criticizing the police. And the point they made was this: when police are being trained, often there's a practice, a custom of showing new police officers videos of cops getting killed. Lots of it. And there are plenty of videos of cops getting killed, making a routine traffic stop. Someone pulls out a pistol and just shoots the cop, instantly goes away. Obviously, a cop should understand that this is the type of thing that can happen. At the same time, you can see how feeding a newbie cop just videos of that for, excessively can create an outsized fear of that happening to the cop, which can then make the cop a worse cop, a more paranoid cop. So it's possible for there to be something that legitimately happens in the world that is then blown out of such proportion so as to create an irrational and unhelpful fear in the person who's being indoctrinated in this way. And the point I made in response was that, isn't that what we are doing as a nation to all Black people by selectively taking videos of Black Americans getting killed, when there really are just as many videos to find of white Americans getting killed in the identical circumstance, and only showing the nation the examples of Black people being killed? We're indoctrinating Black people in the same way that cops get indoctrinated. And this creates an outsized paranoia and fear of the cops, which then increases the tension between the police and Black people, which, there's already lots of tension there because of historical racism and whatnot. So in any event, I saw a parallel between these two types of dysfunction that seemed noteworthy to me.